Week 7 waiver wire is a doozy. Woo! Welcome, everybody. This is Fantasy Football Today, presented by BetMGM. Make it legendary. Give me another word, Jamie, to describe the Week 7 waiver wire.
Stupendous.
Stupendous, Dave. How about you?
It's there.
It's there. It's those injury replacement wide receivers that make you scratch your head. How much do we commit to them? Because Mike Evans could be back, but boy, those Tampa Bay wide receivers have great opportunities. Who's going to step up for the Rams? Is anybody going to step up for the Titans? So that makes things pretty interesting.
The Jets,
and then the injury replacement tight ends who are going to get those targets that the wide receivers are leaving behind, like maybe Oronde Gadsden again, like Mason Taylor. Mason Taylor, his next two matchups are against teams that rank 31st and 32nd against tight ends, Carolina and Cincinnati. Obviously, you got Harold Bannon as well. So, is it a good waiver wire week? I feel like it's kind of a good waiver wire week.
It's an interesting waiver wire week. It's not. You said this yesterday when we did the early look at it, that there are two potential starting running backs, one for sure and one maybe. And the tight ends are good. And the receivers and quarterbacks are kind of like, I may need some help there, but I don't necessarily want to trust it. Like the receiver rankings this week are awful.
Yeah.
No one's healthy.
Yeah.
There's like 7 good receivers, and then everybody else is a giant question mark.
So I list the receivers in the waiver wire column for anybody that does not read it. And this is the list of injuries at the position.
This is going to be depressing.
I don't think I've ever had a list this long. This includes guys that are on IR. So it's Puka Nacua, Marvin Harrison Jr., Garrett Wilson, DJ Moore, CeeDee Lamb, Mike Evans, Emeka Ibuka, Chris Godwin, Quentin Johnston, Terry McLaurin, Ricky Pearsall, Juwan Jennings, Calvin Ridley, Tutu Atwell, who is spelled wrong, Darius Slayton, Darnell Mooney, Calvin Austin, Kavontae Turpin, Dontavian Wicks, Cedric Tillman, Jaden Reed, Brandon Ayuk, Jalen Coker, Alec Pierce, Christian Watson, and Jalen McMillan. Like, it's just absolutely brutal. And that's
Hold
not
on,
including...
Hold on, though.
The two teams on a bye.
Might play.
Yeah, that's not including the two teams on a bye who only have one good wide receiver and an injured one in Josh Palmer. It's Buffalo and Baltimore on bye this week. Yeah, Tutu Atwell might play, or as it's typed in the column right now, Toot Atwell. Or at least in JV's notes. It's bad. Mike Evans might play this week. Ricky Pearsall has a chance to play this week. George Kittle's going to play this week, right?
That's what our understanding is, yes.
Yeah. Okay. So let's get to our top waiver wire priorities. We haven't said Kamani Vidal's name yet, but we're going to say that. Jamie, who are the top 3 priorities?
Yeah, I mean, Vidal was, a guy we were promoting last week, so hopefully everybody took advantage of that. But Vidal would be 1, Harold Fannin would be 2, and 3 would be Zonovan Bam Knight.
Dave?
What a crazy, crazy list you just gave, Jamie. How could you say such a list? I've got Bam Knight second. Vidal, Knight, Fannin.
Vidal is pretty obvious, so he stands out. Knight, let's talk about him real quick. He got 11 carries and 1 catch. He got the goal line touchdown, but he basically split the carries evenly with Michael Carter. Now he plays a much better run defense, although one that's struggling a little bit lately in Green Bay. Their whole defense is struggling a little bit lately with Green Bay, but and then it's a bye for Knight, and then it's Dallas, which is great, but is Zonovan Knight even going to be in your top 24 this week?
He is not, no, but I do think when you're looking at flex options, he's got a chance to be helpful for you, so you said it, like the split is still there. Carter can easily be a better play this week because if they're trailing, which you would probably expect them to be trailing, then there's an opportunity for Carter to be the better of the Cardinals running backs. So I don't have them that far apart. I think, what you kind of got from a workload standpoint for both of them is probably somewhat predictable. And then you factor in that Kyler Murray can play. Jonathan Gannon didn't rule that out. So if Kyler's back, there's some rushing opportunities that they both likely lose. So I don't want to trust him, but I think, again, looking at what he could provide to the position, he should be added.
Okay. Yeah, for sure. He should be added, but you could see a scenario where if he gets 12 touches, I mean, what would happen if he didn't score last week? He could score 6 fantasy points.
Correct.
Bam Knight, right.
He could do what Kenneth Walker's done in like half of his games this year.
You could say, yeah. but less efficient. Okay, so Kamani Vidal, Harold
I didn't
Fannin.
know there were style points in fantasy.
No, yeah, but Kamani Vidal, Harold Fannin Jr., Zonovan Knight for Jamie. Kamani Vidal, Zonovan Knight, Harold Fannin Jr. for Dave. And we're going to talk about it more at 1 p.m. Eastern on CBS Sports Network. Please join us there. Tuesdays and Thursdays. Every Tuesday and Thursday, 1 p.m. Eastern. We're on CBS Sports Network. Tuesday is Waiver Wire. Thursday is a rankings show. And really good stuff. And, just we have time to talk about things that we don't necessarily get to on the morning episode.
So just one thing, somebody brought this up in the chat. I want to make sure I give them credit. Ito Billions, that yes, Trey Benson is coming back. At least that's the expectation, and he will be eligible. I said this wrong on yesterday's show. He's eligible to play in week 10. So week 5, week 6, week 7, week 8 is their bye. Week 9 is the 4-game window that Benson is expected to be on IR. Now he may be on IR longer than that, as we found out with Amari Hampton, right? We got the news that he's going to be on IR longer than the 4 weeks. We don't know when Benson is exactly coming back. So just keep that in mind when you're spending your fab. Like, this is a rental, and this is a rental. It's still in the timeshare. It's a rental in the timeshare that may not be that great. So just don't go crazy with your fab there. By
the way, before we get to fab, have we heard an update on David Njoku? Because obviously if Fannin is such a high priority, I don't know yet that Njoku is definitely out.
No, we have not heard anything yet.
Okay.
Our Matt Zenitz reported yesterday that he's not expected to miss a lot of time. Let me find the actual report. Give me 1 second.
Okay.
Give me 1 second. Come back to me in like 30 seconds. I'll have it.
Yeah. Well, tight ends are so interesting from a waiver wire perspective because there are so many options that you could throw in as a streamer. And if you miss out on Fannin, you could pivot to Cade Otton, right? If Mike Evans is out, Cade Otton in those 4 games without Evans and Godwin last year, he was, I want to say 18 or more points in 3 of 4 games.
Yep.
He had a good game.
That includes the game that they left, though. So
does it? I thought it was even.
No,
maybe
it was
missed 3 games.
It started in week 7.
Okay. Yeah. So Otton could be good, and I just told you Mason Taylor could be good, and he's got no Garrett Wilson. So Dave, back to you.
Zenitz's update. The update on Njoku is it's unclear if he's going to play this week, but the belief is that the injury isn't anything significant.
Okay. All right. So how much fab are we spending on Kamani Vidal, who is rostered in, 56% of our leagues? I'll check his roster percentage on other websites. But Jamie, are we breaking the bank for Vidal?
I mean, you're probably going to come close to that at this point, just from the standpoint of you've now seen it. So last week it was, hey, don't go crazy because we don't know that Hampton's going to miss more than the 4 weeks. We don't know how the split's going to work between him and Haskins, and are they still going to potentially bring somebody else in? Well, now we have a week of data. We have a week of watching this all unfold, and it's clearly Kamani Vidal as the lead guy, and he looked awesome. It was against Miami. Don't expect it to look this easy. So I think you look at it this way: like if you're 500 or worse and your running back situation sucks, you're probably going to spend as much you need to do to get somebody that can help you through what could be week 7, 8, 9, or not more than that, week 10, 11, 12, 13, 14. We don't know when Hampton's coming back. So yes, spend north of probably 30%. If you are looking at it as, I don't need somebody and I want to wait to see what the next player may be because your team is great, we're going to have more of these scenarios, unfortunately, develop in front of us. So it's one of those things. I think you got to look at your roster and say, what do you need?
Dave, any thoughts on how much to spend on Vidal? He's got the Colts. He's got the Vikings. Those run defense actually have not been that good against running backs.
No, and then the Titans after that.
Yep. Pittsburgh.
So, yeah. Some good matchups coming up for Vidal. He's not going to be. Jamie's right. I don't want to overrate him based on how he played against Miami, but at least the role's there. If he's still on your waiver wire in your league, though, I'm not sure. There's going to be more interest in him, of course. I think 30% is where you start. And just if you're really desperate, go to 45%, something like that, close to 50%. Wrangle in Vidal. You've got a starting running back who's got good matchups in the next 3 weeks.
Okay. Kamani Vidal is rostered in fewer than 25% of leagues on the other 3 sites, Yahoo, ESPN, and Sleeper.
Yeah.
And I'm going to try to look for some players that are just widely available on those websites that we're probably not going to talk about. But okay. So, and then would you spend more than 8% of your original budget fab on any other players this week?
So I think for the receivers, no, because you're looking at a lot of like maybe this, maybe that, hopefully this, hopefully that, so I think if you're desperate, you're going to spend a little bit maybe on Booty with the hope that that's something that is going to be different than the previous 4 weeks. But he does play the most snaps of the Patriots wide receivers, and he does now have 2 of 6 games with over 16 PPR points, and the quarterback is playing absolutely fantastic. So maybe there's something sustainable there, but it's hard to say that that's anything of significance because, again, 4 weeks prior to that, he did nothing. In the case of the replacement options, you mentioned several of these guys. So you have the replacement situation in Arizona. We don't know if Marvin Harrison's even going to miss this week. We have the replacement situation in Tampa Bay. We don't know if Mike Evans is going to come back or not after being out for 3 weeks, and he had a 3 or 4 week window. So it sounds realistic like he could return. We have the situation with the Jets. I don't know if anybody wants to go that route. We have the situation with the Titans. That's been miserable to begin with. So, you're looking for a hope of this, a Tutu Atwell here, maybe as a secondary option for the Rams. And it might be Tyler Higbee as the best secondary option for the Rams. So there's nothing really, I think, of I need to spend a lot on that particular player. So I just have it ranked in the priority list of who I think has a chance to play well. And now Luther Burden comes into play as well because DJ Moore went to the hospital last night. We don't know what's going on there. You said this, and I totally agree with you. That's how I wrote it, is that if you don't need a receiver for this week, maybe just go get Darius Slayton because there's a big opportunity still for him. Remember, we thought about that when Malik Neighbors was initially injured, and then he suffers a hamstring injury. Jackson Dart's playing well, so you could see a situation where, especially after this week when they don't play Denver anymore, where Darius Slayton could be a really good option for fantasy managers. So Josh Downs is playing well. Like, I don't think you spend a lot at the receiver spot. Tight end, I think there's just, a lot of options. So don't go crazy with it.
The only other player who's going to get more than 8% fab is Zonovan Knight. That's it. And it shouldn't be that much more than 8%. Like, desperate for a running back, he's your second option, or maybe you can only get him because someone picked up Vidal. Then maybe you go to like 12, 15% on Knight. But otherwise, there are too many other receivers. All the receivers have question marks. All the tight ends have question marks. A lot of the quarterbacks are okay. Like Jackson Dart's pretty exciting, but it's more long-term than short-term. I don't think you need to spend 8% of fab.
Yeah. Okay. With that said, we're going to take a break. Before we do that, though, let's picture something, football fans. Okay, you bet on your favorite player to score the first touchdown in the game, but his teammate scores instead. If this happens, BetMGM wants to give you another chance at the end zone. With BetMGM's second chance promotion, you'll get your stake back if your first touchdown scorer scores second instead. So that's right. Bet on any pro football player to score the first touchdown of the game. If you're right, you win. If your player scores second, you get your stake back in cash. With BetMGM's second chance offer, you have a chance to keep the fun going after the first player crosses the goal line. Try a first touchdown scorer wager with confidence today. BetMGM, make it legendary. Okay, quick break. Update you on the news and notes and get to the top priorities at each position. We'll be right back.
When you need your sports news all the time,
we've got breaking news to bring to you.
CBS Sports HQ gives you a snapshot of all the sports that matter to you. When you need your sports in a snap, find it on CBS Sports HQ, streaming free anywhere you are.
Some news items. I've said a lot of these throughout the last couple of days, but we'll say them again. Lamar Jackson expected back after the bye. They have Chicago in week 8. Tennessee fired their head coach, Brian Callahan, and Mike McCoy is going to be the interim head coach. Dave, any thoughts on what this means for the Titans offense?
I'm sure they'll try and, change a few things about how they are operating. If they're without Calvin Ridley for a long time, that's going to hurt their passing game a little bit. Not that it was good with Ridley. They had some moments. I wonder if we start to see more of Tyjae Spears in neutral game situations, meaning not when they're chasing points in the second half. And I wonder if they kind of lean into him a little bit more because he brings an explosive element to the offense.
Jonathan Gannon said Kyler Murray is the starting quarterback when he's healthy, and Jamie already said he hasn't been ruled out for this week against Green Bay. And Jets head coach Aaron Glenn is not benching Justin Fields. Okay.
That was a great answer he gave if you saw it.
Yeah, I saw that.
Yeah, you
You
want to
know
talk about it? Because I think I have to sneeze.
He just said, we're not going to judge him based on one game. And he thought that the totality of his play has been at least above subpar standards. I don't know, saying it was good, but he did. But in any event, not benching him based on one thing and giving him the body of work as the example more so than the game against the Broncos. So at least for now, he's safe.
Oh gosh, losing a sneeze is just so frustrating. I just wanted that satisfaction. I'm be searching for it for the rest of the show. Bucky Irving is out this week. Blake Corum is day-to-day. Amari DiMercado's got the ankle injury. Wonder if he messes things up if he plays this week. Wide receiver Garrett Wilson has a knee injury. He avoided serious injury, but we don't know when he'll be back. We're not expecting him this week. They have Carolina, then Cincinnati, and then a bye. That's Garrett Wilson. So he has a knee injury that's fairly serious, but not terrible. Puka Nacua, like I said yesterday, I think you guys would probably agree. I think the safest way to think about Puka is he's going to miss this week and then hopefully back after next week's bye, right? We just shouldn't plan on having Puka this week.
We're not ranking him.
Emeka Buka hamstring. Mike Evans could practice this week, and Chris Godwin is already out. He's been ruled out. Marvin Harrison Jr. concussion. CeeDee Lamb and Kevontae Turpin could play this week, so that'd be cool. Let's get Turpin back. Oh no, let's get Lamb back. Calvin Ridley hamstring. Josh Palmer left with an ankle injury. They're going into their bye, and Calvin Austin, who really hasn't been that bad, he could play this week. And we like Aaron Rodgers against the Bengals, so maybe Calvin Austin could be sneaky little sleeper. Tight end David Njoku, who's got a thigh injury. Brock Bowers doesn't seem like he's going to play this week based on what Pete Carroll said. So they've got a bye next week as well. Kind of like the Rams situation. Brock Bowers at Kansas City, then a bye. And again, if you miss out on Harold Fannin Jr., maybe you can pivot to Michael Mayer. Mike Gesicki has a pectoral injury. I told Dave before the show, if you go to, I love this on CBS. If you go into your league and you go to a guy's player page, you can see where all of his upcoming opponents for the rest of the season rank against that position. So if you went to Noah Fant's player page, he's got the Bengals tight ends have to have the best matchups of any player at any position. They've got one matchup rest of season against a team that currently is inside the top 20 against tight ends. The tight end, team versus tight end position, the rankings, they change a lot, but good. Not that it really matters, but good matchups for the Bengals tight ends now.
Spend all your fab on Noah Fant?
Nope. Don't even say that as a joke. You don't want to be on
that was a joke. Yes.
Yeah. George Kittle hopefully playing this week. Right. You know what? Atlanta, boy, they were looking so good. You cannot deny the impact that losing their left tackle had in that game. Jake Matthews played much of the first half, didn't play in the second half, and their backup left tackle really struggled. And Michael Penix scored almost all of his points in the first half. It really seemed to make a difference there. So that's a left tackle we'll be looking at. Jack Conklin, right tackle for Cleveland. He left in the second half. They've got Miami this week, right?
Yes.
Atlanta has San Francisco.
No. Cleveland.
Cleveland. Yeah, I'm sorry. Cleveland has Miami, yes.
All right. Let's get to our top three players at each position. And Jamie, who are the top three quarterbacks this week?
Top three quarterbacks for this week are the great Aaron Rodgers would be number one with his matchup against the Cincinnati Bengals. Jackson Dart is a long-term play, not a short-term play, because I don't like him this week against the Denver Broncos. But after that, he gets the Eagles again, who he just scored 25 fantasy points against, the 49ers, which we know the defense is very depleted, and then the Bears. So that three-game stretch, you'll want to have Jackson Dart as a potential starter, especially we know week 8 with all the bye weeks. And after Dart, it's Bryce Young. Adam, I said this to you yesterday, that you're 1 for 2 so far. You're batting 500 against Bryce Young with his three-game stretch that you called Dolphins, Cowboys, now Jets. So we'll see if you're above 500 or below 500 as Bryce Young on the Jets. Matchup of this three-game magical stretch that you talked about.
Yeah, there is no matchup that's even in the ballpark of the Dallas Cowboys. And he only threw 25 passes. I mean, they're running the ball so well that he's not throwing that much. 25 pass attempts in a shootout against the Cowboys. He still turned it into 24.5 points. But the Jets are kind of interesting. They've only given up 20 or more fantasy points to 2 quarterbacks this year. So take that.
But they've been kind of living at that 20-point threshold, though.
Yeah. But that's Josh Allen, Baker Mayfield, Tua, and Bo Nix. didn't score 20 fantasy points. So is Bryce Young going to do that? Aaron Rodgers and Dak Prescott had huge games against them. Where is he in your top 15 this week, Bryce?
No.
Okay. All right. So it's not like last week where there was some enthusiasm for him. All right. Running back, Dave, top 3 running backs.
Vidal's number 1, Knight is number 2, Tyjae Spears is number 3. All 3 of them are available in at least 40% of CBS Sports leagues. Bam Knight is at 88%. So even in your deep league, he's going to be available.
Sure. What do you think the chances are of Tyjae Spears leading the Titans in carries going forward, Dave?
I don't love his chances of doing that as long as Pollard stays healthy, but it wouldn't surprise me if there were some games where it's close, where it's like 12 for Pollard, 8 for Spears. But Spears can make up for it a little bit in the passing game.
Someone in the chat asked, and this is a little off subject, but are we expecting Aaron Jones? Just to give an update on that, he has to miss one more game. This week will be his 4th on IR, and then hopefully back after that in week 8. Wide receiver, Jamie, who are our top wide receivers?
Buckle up. I have Kayshon Boutte at the top, just coming off the game that he had, and again the fact that he plays the most snaps of the Patriots receivers. Drake May's playing well. Hopefully, it's something that could be sustainable. Josh Downs, back-to-back games with at least 6 catches and getting more involved. So we'll see if there's something that happens there with him moving forward. Obviously, with what Tyler Warren does and what Michael Pittman has done, it's hard to expect consistent performances from Josh Downs, but at least the last 2 weeks have been encouraging. And this could be a little bit of a difficult game for Warren. You're not benching him, but as Heath alluded to last week with Darren Waller, like the Chargers just great against tight ends. So it could be a little tough for Warren to be at the same level of production, and maybe we see a little bit more for Downs. And then hoping, I've said this now since draft season. I've said this now for the last couple of weeks when he was eligible to return, that I think Jalen Coker is going to make an impact. I'm hoping he make an impact. We know the schedule is favorable, at least for this week. He seems like he's going to be eligible to return. So for me, I'm going to avoid a lot of the replacement options and kind of hope that Coker plays this week and start him over the best non-Mike Evans Tampa Bay receiver, assuming Ibuka's out as well, the best non-Marvin Harrison Cardinals receiver, like all that mess. I hope Coker plays.
Right, because we see it a lot. Like McMillan could have a bad week this week against the Jets.
Yep.
But the other guy, hopefully it's Coker, could do well. It's a lot to ask a guy first game of the season. But, Dave, when I look at wide receiver, I'm really circling that Lions-Bucks game. The total is 52.5.
Yes.
It's in Detroit.
Yes.
You could see so much potential for Baker Mayfield to be throwing a lot.
But who is it, though?
It's tough.
That's the thing. It's like, who is it?
Well, what do you guys think?
I have Cameron Johnson first,
and
then Shepard second, and then Tez Johnson third. And you flip that, and I'd be like, yeah, cool, sure. That's exactly what it'll be. Like, there's no rhyme or reason to it. Cameron Johnson had more targets than Tez Johnson. They both had big plays. They're both fast. They're both going to be on the field potentially a lot. I think as we discussed this yesterday, Adam, like if you're talking about give me Tampa Bay best pass catcher, non-Evans, non-Godwin, non-Ibuka, I'd rather have Otten and just, forget about the receivers.
That's not a bad call. Here's what I like best about this matchup. The Lions secondary is banged up. Brian Branch might not play. And I don't think Tampa's going to be able to run the ball very well because not a lot of people can run the ball very well against Detroit. So they're going to have to take to the air. Tez is my favorite of the 3. He's the fastest of the 3. He had an 84% route rate to lead the Bucks last week. Obviously, it might not have been as high if Emeka Ibuka had played the whole game. Ibuka probably would have had the highest route rate. But Tez is going to be my favorite of the 3. And he is one of the 3 receivers that I would look at. He's probably going to be 3rd on my list. And then I would have Shepard 2nd, and I would have Cam Johnson 3rd. But I feel the exact same way you do, Jamie. If you've got him listed the opposite way, we're just taking shots. And it's because of Baker, how well he's played, and where the matchup is favorable for the Bucks this week against the depleted Lions secondary.
Right. I didn't even mention that. Terry and Arnold's going to be out, I would think, and Brian Branch is suspended. He can appeal his suspension.
Kirby Joseph is banged up, and DJ Reed's been on the shelf for a while. Like, this is a tough spot for the Lions to even try and, run with some of these fast receivers that the Bucks have. Here's the other wrinkle. If Mike Evans plays, he's going to take one of the Johnsons off the field. Which one is it going to be? Is it going to be Cam or is it going to be Tez? That's going to be a question that we're going to have to answer later in the week. But it's another reason why you shouldn't spend a bunch of fab or make your priority one of those Bucs receivers.
It's also, you got to assume, not a full or typical Mike Evans probably snap count. Coming back from a hamstring injury, they know what they're looking at from their season. Like, do they want to risk him getting hurt again, especially with Godwin maybe out for a majority of the season? How this is sounding, and who knows how long Ibuka is going to be out. So they may be a little bit cautious with Evans. So it could work out where we get the full Jew of, the best of Mike Evans. You're still starting him, obviously, if he plays, but like, we may not get typical snap share for him, and then one of these guys steps up and has a big game.
Man, could you imagine if both teams were fully healthy offense? Well, the Lions are, but if the Bucs were fully healthy offensively, the shootout we would have would be so good for fantasy.
We might be getting the shootout anyway.
You might be.
I still may make, and this is nerve-wracking, but the matchup is, I still may make Baker Mayfield start of the week.
You should make Jamison Williams the start of the week.
Yeah.
He should have a big game,
Should.
Oh, hopeful. There's some encouraging trends for Jamison Williams we'll get to later in the week. All right, who's getting tight ends? Dave, top 3 tight ends.
Harold Fannin, you're back in our lives, and you're the number 1 tight end to claim off of waivers, and I don't necessarily feel great about the other names on this list. There's Mason Taylor. There's Michael Mayer. That's probably the top 3, but you can make the case for Evan Engram. You can make the case for Oronde Gadsden. You can make the case. Well, Cade Otton should actually be on this list. Let me start over. Fannin 1, Otton 2, Taylor 3. Let's just end it there. Those are your top 3.
Okay, and you did mention Mayer, and he's been good. Gadsden had a good game without Quentin
Mayer
Johnston.
is a 1-week rental for sure, and Otton to a degree is as well, because we know that eventually they'll get healthy in Tampa. We know eventually Brock Bowers will be back. The Raiders, I believe, are one of the teams that's on bye in week 8. So you've only got 1 week of Mayer against Kansas City.
Right. Kansas City's been a pretty tough matchup, but also I think Harold Fannin is potentially a 1-week rental.
It's possible. Yeah, these are all potentially 1-week rentals.
Yeah. Okay. Well, this is a good, call it blockbuster. A lot of good
There you go.
good rentals. I need to throw one more name in the wide receiver mix just because he's available in a decent amount of leagues and he's available in a lot of leagues on the other sites. Kendrick Bourne. How are we feeling about him? Because Kittle coming back potentially, maybe Pearsall. Jennings is so beat up right now. He's like the operation guy. He's got a lot of things going on right now. Jamie, if Kendrick Bourne were out there, where would he rank on the waiver wire?
So I put guys like this that are rostered basically in like the 80 to 66% range in the check to see if they're available in shallow leagues. What I said about Kendrick Bourne, if he's available, he's the number 1 receiver to get.
Yes.
So still based on everything you said, Kittle back, Pearsall look likely back, Jennings may still play. I still think you're looking at him better than all of the rest of these guys, just given the uncertainty about all of them. So it may not have as much upside, let's say, as the Tampa Bay guys if everybody's there. And look, the quarterback change may hurt Bourne because Mac Jones has just been feeding him. So we'll see how that goes. But I think just as we sit here right now, Mac Jones expected to start, and Bourne has just been fantastic the last 2 weeks.
Okay. Bourne is 68% rostered. And now it's time for a coverage you can count on, sponsored by Nationwide. Jamie, give me a DST to stream this week.
The best DST I have for this week would be the Chiefs. They get the Raiders. They're 47% rostered. We know Geno Smith has been a turnover machine. He's got, I believe, 7 interceptions in his last 3 games. Or 6 interceptions last 3 games. Like, he's just turned the ball over at such an unbelievable rate. And going into Arrowhead, I think it's going to be a nightmare for him. So Chiefs DST should be rostered and started across the board.
Any other DSTs you like? It's not a great week, I feel like, for DSTs.
Seahawks are still available in 36% of leagues. And the Vikings coming off their bye. I know they're playing the Eagles, but it's not the same version of the Eagles. So Vikings DST still worth starting this week.
Okay. Yeah, and the Seahawks have been really good in 5 of 6 weeks so far. Houston, that's a winnable matchup for the Seahawks DST.
Yep.
And that was coverage you can count on, sponsored by Nationwide. Kickers to stream, Jamie?
Kickers to stream this week would be Chris Boswell. Should be a good matchup for him against Cincinnati. Jason Myers just continues to play well at home. And Josh Carty, I know we had a little concern last week about the weather. Hopefully no issues in London. I don't think so. So you can go back to Carty this week.
All right, good stuff. So why don't we do some shallow leaguers and some deep leaguers? So Kendrick Bourne is definitely on this list, but who are some of the other shallow league players, Jamie, that would be even better than most of the guys we've talked about so far?
So I'll go backwards from tight end. Zach Ertz, ended his 3-game slump last night with 6 for 43 and a touchdown. So I think you can go back to him if you're looking for tight end help. I'm still going to go to Kyle Pitts, even though he had a bad game last week, but worst game of the season. Still don't know if Darnell Mooney's going to be back. And just in the unlikely event that George Kittle does not play, don't give up on Jake Tongas just yet, because he's been awesome for the last 3 weeks. And clearly that position on that offense is worth using based on what we saw from Tongas. At receiver, besides from Kendrick Bourne, there's several guys here that you can maybe not start this week, but you definitely want to roster. Matthew Golden, best game of the season so far, coming off their bye. You always like to see that for rookie wide receivers after their bye, playing well and getting a little bit more involved. And so Golden, somebody should be rostered. I'm going to go back to Jerry Jeudy. I initially was going to have him on the drop list, but 13 targets gets Miami this week. Maybe no David Njoku. This could be his best game to date. So I actually will use Jerry Jeudy once again in 3 receiver leagues. Cooper Kupp, not a great game last week, but scored his first touchdown. I don't fear the matchup for him so much against the Texans. We could see, JSN get Stingley, so maybe Kupp gets a few more targets, especially if they throw the ball more. Trey Tucker, we kind of alluded to this Sunday night. Is he the best Raiders receiver? Wan'Dale Robinson, obviously coming off a strong game and back-to-back games with 7 targets with Jackson Dart. Rashid Shaheed is still worth rostering. And then you mentioned Kendrick Bourne. Running backs, we have Kenneth Gainwell, should be rostered, obviously based on what we discussed on Sunday. Can be a flex option with the 6 catches, and this receiving core is beat up right now. And then Kendrick Miller, you still want to roster him just in case we see more work and maybe a trade happens with Alvin Kamara. And at quarterback, you have Brock Purdy is worth rostering still just in case he plays, and Sam Darnold has been fantastic, so don't leave him on your waiver wire.
Yeah, Darnold. How do you feel about Darnold this week? Because he's 67% rostered. He's available in a number of leagues, and he's got Houston. They're number 1 against quarterbacks so far. They've faced Baker Mayfield, who had a good game, Stafford, Trevor Lawrence, Cam Ward, Cooper Rush. I know they have a good defense, but they haven't really been tested. Darnold's playing out of his mind. Darnold or Aaron Rodgers this week?
I would go Rodgers this week just based on the matchup, but I can understand if somebody wants to go Darnold. I'll probably have Darnold as the bust alert for this week just because of the matchup.
I have Darnold higher.
Do you feel like Darnold or Jackson Dart is a better stash?
Darnold.
Darnold is the better stash.
This guy's playing really, really well.
Yes.
I mean,
he's got one of the best receivers in the game this year.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. Unlike last year.
But it's worked out. Like it's the same premise. Like he's making it work with an amazing receiver, and the numbers, the production is good. Yeah. And I get that it's a really tough matchup against Houston. You can't love Sam Darnold this week. Would you be shocked if he had 22 fantasy points anyway?
So just to wrap up the shallow league stuff, if there's a dream scenario, I can't believe this guy is available on waivers. Who is this guy?
Patrick Mahomes.
Is it Bourne? Is it Darnold? Is it Gainwell?
Of that whole group?
Yeah.
Bourne.
It would be Bourne.
I don't know, but Bourne, it could be such a trap. He could not play soon, or barely.
Yeah, do you really think a guy who's been as productive as he's been the last couple of weeks, when the other receivers and stud tight end are not at 100%, is just going to head to the bench and not be a part of the 49ers game plan? 49ers are looking for players who are good at this point. They're so beat up, especially on defense, but certainly on offense as well. We know this because of the quarterback being out, receivers being not 100%. Like Bourne's been good. They've got to keep him on the field. It would be silly if they didn't. It wouldn't be like Kyle Shanahan to not utilize players who have been productive for them.
They do throw a lot. So, all right, make it work. All right, well, none of these guys are taking a quick break, and then we'll come back with the deep league guys. Be right back. Okay, well, I picked up Kendrick Bourne during the preseason. Why are you talking about these guys, Dave? None of these guys are available in my league. Who are the deep league targets?
The deep league targets at quarterback are gross. It's Carson Wentz. It's Jacoby Brissett. It's Joe Flacco, Dylan Gabriel, Spencer Rattler. You are hoping that one of Mac Jones, Bryce Young, somebody like that's available. And even in the case of Bryce Young, Aaron Rodgers should be on that list too. That one of those guys is available that you can use them this week as a bye week replacement for Josh Allen and potentially pivot off of whoever you've been using as a replacement of Lamar Jackson. I have no idea who everybody's been using. Use your best judgment. At running back, Bam Knight is the prize, 88% available. The other running backs that are available in deep leagues, they're more stashes than anything else. It's Xavier Scott, Isaiah Davis, Sean Tucker, Brashard Smith. They're all available in 75% plus of CBS Sports leagues. At wide receiver, Tez Johnson, I think, is the best one, 97% available. You've got Sterling Shepard, 91% available. Let's keep it going with the Bucs receivers because Cam Johnson is 99% available. Those three guys are all great. Jamie's talked a lot about Kayshon Boutte. I don't like that Boutte was under 10 PPR points in the 4 games prior to last week. You're hoping that he builds on what he did in week 6 and doesn't go back to what he did in weeks 2 through 5. But he's available in 85% of leagues. If you need a 1-week rental, Tutu Atwell, we've talked about him. Looks like he's going to play. Looks like he's going to play a lot. He's available in 98% of leagues. A couple of Bears receivers, Luther Burden, Olamide Zaccheaus. I'd rather have Burden, but if there's no DJ Moore, those are 2 guys that are out there. You could use them in a pinch. At tight end, Cade Otton, 87% available. Michael Mayer, 97% available. Oronde Gadsden, 97% available.
Yeah, this DJ Moore situation is so odd. Just admitted to the hospital. We don't really know why. Hopefully he's fine. But yeah, Luther Burden, we've seen the flashes from Luther Burden. DJ Moore getting 5 targets or 6 targets in every game this season.
I think the thing with Burden, I'll go back to what I said about Darius Slayton. Like, if you don't have to play anybody this week, he's a great wide receiver stat. And look, he may have a great week. You know, he just was coming off a game where he led them in receptions and was second in receiving yards. So clearly coming out of the bye week, they're trying to get him more involved. And now if Moore is not there, but I also think, again, if you're looking at it from the situation of I don't need somebody this week, I'm not going for the desperation play of a Bucs receiver or any other injury replacement, and DJ Moore does play, like I want to stash Luther Burden more so than I would if I don't need any of these receivers.
Right. Like you would take him over the Bucs receivers if you're thinking long term. And we need to talk about preparing for week 8 because week 7's coming up and 2 big teams are on bye. But week 8, there's 6 teams on bye. Everybody before you set your waivers tonight, set your lineup for week 8 and find out, oh man, I'm going to need a running back, or oh man, I might need 2 receivers for week number 8. You need to start to plan ahead. It's going to be the bad fantasy manager that doesn't plan ahead now for week 8. It's a bye NATO. It's 6 teams on bye. If you need the names of the 6 teams, I can tell you, but it's not going to be easy to set a lineup. The week 8 teams on bye: Arizona, Detroit, they've got a couple of good players. Jacksonville, the Rams, the Raiders, the Seahawks. Who am I missing? Because that's not 6, right? That's 5. Or is that?
Yeah. I think that was 5.
Okay. Cardinals,
Arizona, Detroit,
Lions,
Jets,
Jaguars, Rams, Raiders, Seahawks.
Arizona, Detroit, Jacksonville, Las Vegas, Rams, Seahawks. Yeah, sorry.
All right, good. We spent 45 seconds figuring out the 6 teams that were on bye. That's great. But the point is that you need to go and make sure that you're covered. This is a week. We've talked about it twice already on the show. There's some good depth on the waiver wire. Well, good is a relative term at wide receiver and tight end. And honestly, running back, like at least there's names. You should try and get ahead of week 8 if you can this week.
Okay. If you're in a deep league and super flex league, you might want to pick up Shadur Sanders. That could be happening at some point.
Yeah, it's a good call. So I've been texting with Greg Allman, who covers the Bucs for Fox Sports. He's covered them for many, many years. He covers the NFC South for Fox Sports, but covered the Bucs for many, many years. So I asked him, I said, in your opinion, who do you think would be the best Bucs wide receiver? He says Evans should be back. So expect that. That's a good thing. He thinks he would go with Shepard based on the volume. He said Tez had the touchdown last week, but it was only catch. Cam had never caught a pass before Sunday. Keep that in mind. Line secondary's mess. So there's opportunities everywhere behind Evans. And then he said Otton is definitely going to be involved. So this is a writer who covers the team, again, knows them as well as anyone.
Every day.
and that's just his opinion. So I think if you're looking at it, the safe play might just be Shepard, because we know he's going to be on the field no matter what happens. As Dave alluded to, Evans comes back and one of these guys is off the field. If you're looking for the floor, could be Shepard. But again, there could be a touchdown or two for one of the two Johnsons, and Otten is going to be involved. So just keep that in mind from a priority standpoint.
Yeah, I think the fact that Evans is expected to play is obviously going to change my enthusiasm about these guys for sure.
Sure.
All right, Chicago 25, Washington 24. The game turns on a late fumble. Jaden Daniels in a wet game couldn't get control of the ball and turned it over, and they played for the field goal at the end, and they kicked it, and it was good. And the Bears win 25-24 on a walk-off. Rome Odunze had a touchdown called back, so he had a pretty bad game. It was called back on like a senseless penalty too. But Dave, any major takeaways from Chicago 25, Washington 24?
I think people are disappointed in what we got out of Krosky Merritt as far as production goes. The workload was great. 17 carries is exactly what we were hoping for. You would think that 17 carries against the Chicago Bears would lead to huge numbers. It just didn't. He didn't have a run longer than 11 yards. It was unfortunate. And obviously the fumble wasn't any good either. So I'm still relatively optimistic that Krosky Merritt is going to be at least a number 2 running back right now. And what else are the Commanders going to do unless they make a trade? They're not going to put Chris Rodriguez in a prominent role again. And we know that McNichols is the third down back. So discouraging numbers from Merritt, but at least the opportunities are there. And we know that he's fast. It's too bad he couldn't take advantage of a good matchup. And then on the other side for Chicago, DeAndre Swift looked amazing.
Yes.
And I think Chicago doesn't need to add another running back if they don't want to. And if Swift's going to continue to play like this, then one Heath Cummings is going to win at least half of a bet against me, because he's been better than Kamara going into this week. And now he's certainly better coming out of it. I think he's an easy must start. And I think DeAndre Swift just continues to be a good, capable number 2 fantasy running back.
Right. And the thing with Swift was we looked at his upcoming schedule and said, well, he's got a really good, I think we talked about this on the Buy Low show on Wednesday. He's got a great schedule after Washington. Washington had been a great run defense, but then New Orleans, Baltimore, Cincinnati, the Giants, great run defense or great run schedule for Swift. And then he kind of got ahead of a schedule. Oh, okay, here we go. Oh, I lost it again. I gotta stop talking before the sneeze. Oh, so annoying. But Swift, who would you guys rather have rest of season, Swift or Bill?
I think you got to lean Swift at this point.
Yeah, although, I mean, here we go. He gets Dallas this week. I'll still take Krosky Merritt, but it's close.
I would take Merritt for this week, but I'm thinking rest of season that Swift is probably a little bit better.
Swift gets about 3 or 4 catches most games. He only had 2 yesterday, but he took one of them to the house. I am a little concerned about Corey Krosky Merritt's catches because he is not playing on third down at all. And he had 2 catches last week. He had 1 in week 6, but he's really talented. I think if you like Bill, this is the chance to buy low on him. Did we miss a sell high window on Rome Odunze? I had been talking about it, and the yards weren't great. He's scoring touchdowns. He did almost score another touchdown this game. Or are we just totally fine with him? He's great.
Totally fine with him. He's great. DJ Moore may not play, so maybe a couple more opportunities for him. I mean, I love him this week against the Saints.
Okay. Mm-hmm. Atlanta 20. Atlanta 24, Buffalo 14. Really impressive game from the Atlanta Falcons. And the Bills lost Josh Palmer early. No Kincaid. And you had Terrell on Coleman a lot, really taking him out of the game. I wouldn't call it a shadow necessarily, but he really took out Coleman from a chunk of the game.
At this point, Coleman's shadow may take out Coleman.
Well, you thought it was a great opportunity, but here he is matched up against AJ Terrell, who's been really good this year when he's played. So, Jamie, your takeaways from this game?
I mean, Drake London, whenever Darnell Mooney does not play, is an absolute monster. He's my number 1 receiver for this week. Just what he continues to get target-wise. Think about what this offense was. They beat Buffalo with 2 players. It was Bijan Robinson and Drake London. Obviously Michael Penix was a part of that, but there was no second wide receiver. There was, I guess you got to give Algier some credit. He is worth picking up, by the way. He now has 3 of his last 4 games with 10.6 PPR points or more. So in that flex conversation with how they use him, I think just from the standpoint of, you know what you're getting with the Falcons. I wouldn't panic about Kyle Pitts, his worst game of the season. I think will go back to being a low end starter. I wouldn't shy away from using him this week against San Francisco with their injuries, especially if Mooney's out again. So kudos to the Falcons. You know, we were wondering what this team looked like after that loss against the Panthers, and they bounced back in a big way with their last 2 games.
Their defense played great. 4 sacks, a couple of turnovers of Josh Allen, 1 late. That doesn't really matter, but it's another strong defensive effort from the Falcons. I wish that they were a little more consistent, because you talked about it before the break. They've had some stinkers, but rising up, to use their term, to slow down Josh Allen and the Bills. I thought that was great. I was a little surprised by the lack of usage in James Cook as far as workload goes. I know snap share, because he got a lot of work. He just didn't play a lot. He only had 2 snaps in the 4th quarter. That was a little bit surprising. The Bills defense was really bad. I think the Bills defense kind of beat themselves in this game. The missed tackle on Bijan on his long run. Obviously, they couldn't contain Drake London whatsoever. Algier on his run, it wasn't as long as Bijan's, but it was a good, strong run. They couldn't slow him down. I'm thinking that they're going to have to make some changes on defense, and especially against the run, if they're going to come back and try and be a stronger version of themselves after their bye.
Very injured on defense. They were missing Milano. A couple guys got hurt and I think came back, but they're pretty beat up defensively.
Mm-hmm.
And they have a well-timed bye week here. James Cook has 1 target in his last 2 games, guys. You know, we know.
Buy low.
Yeah.
If you can. Yeah.
I mean, you're talking about not his best 2-game stretch and on a bye, you know, so you might be able to see somebody that if you're lucky enough to have receiver depth and the James Cook manager does not, turn a receiver into, like, if you have Rashee Rice coming back and you love your receiving core and your running backs are just trash right now, and that Cook manager has trash at wide receiver, like, that's a great trade.
You'd trade Rice. You'd cook Rice.
I would cook Rice, yes.
Okay. Would you rather have Saquon Barkley or James Cook rest of season?
Cook.
I'd still cook.
Okay. Dave and I fought about that a couple weeks ago. And still no tight end is more than 4 targets against the Bills. So they're a tough matchup for tight ends, no doubt.
Yeah. Would you like to know 2 stupid things I did with start sit this week?
Yes.
I took Kendrick Bourne and Kyle Pitts both out of the column.
You had Bourne as a sit and Pitts as a start?
I had Bourne as a start.
Oh.
And I had Pitts as the bustler.
I know what you meant.
Yeah. No, we got some heat for the Juwan Jennings thing. I mean, Jennings played most of the snaps. He just did nothing. All right. Drop-o-meter real quick. 0 to 10. Bo Nix.
To drop?
Yeah.
0.
Agreed.
RJ Harvey.
2.
1.
Justin Fields.
0.
Yeah, low, but I'm not a 0. I'd put him at like 3.
I just don't know what he's going to do without Garrett Wilson, right? Because the next 2 matchups, Carolina and Cincinnati, are amazing. And if he had Garrett Wilson, I could see him scoring 30 points in those 2 games. But I'm assuming no Wilson for those 2 games. I don't know that for fact. And then he has a bye.
I mean, they may set a record for rush attempts between the running backs and the quarterback.
I think they tried to do that against Denver and did not.
And they nearly won.
They did nearly win. We were on the air. We were on the air for our, starters at pregame show, and I was watching the game. I was like, how are the Jets winning right now? They were up like 10-9 or something like that.
Yeah.
It was bizarre.
Denver let them hang around for sure. But after the bye, let's say that Garrett Wilson is out against Carolina and Cincinnati. After the bye, the Jets have the Browns, at New England, at Baltimore, Atlanta, and then Miami in week 14. How many of those games would you feel good starting Fields with Garrett Wilson back? Cleveland, New England, Baltimore, Atlanta.
No.
Maybe 2 of them. I don't know what Baltimore's defense is going to look like at that point.
All right. Michael Carter on the drop-o-meter.
0.
Drop him for Knight if you had to.
I guess, if that's the only move you can make.
Hunter Henry on the drop-o-meter.
He's droppable.
I would drop him for almost all the tight ends that we talked about.
Yeah.
Let's see what we missed with the waiver wire. Quarterback, check to see if available. How about Brock Purdy? 82% rostered. They throw a ton. He should be good. Would you rather have Purdy or Darnold the rest of the season?
Is Purdy 100%?
I don't know.
Is his receiving core 100%?
That I think is more likely than his health being 100% right now. So I would rather have Purdy than Darnold.
They both have good schedules the rest of the way. I'll take Darnold over Purdy, but it's close.
All right, Aaron Rodgers. Last time, we kind of talked about him on the waiver wire show. He had this supposedly good matchup against New England, which we later learned is not that good of a matchup. The Bengals, I feel pretty confident, are a good matchup. But my concern, Jamie, the Bengals, the last two quarterbacks to face the Bengals have thrown 23 and 26 passes, Goff and Love. Those two teams run the ball really well, obviously. The Steelers, not as much. But this team can't score Cincinnati. So, what's your confidence level in Aaron Rodgers? He's your number one quarterback for this week, but it's not exactly the best waiver wire quarterback week.
Correct. It's low. I mean, I don't think he's a slam dunk must start quarterback, but good matchup, and he's coming off a game. Look, he's the second quarterback to go over 16 fantasy points against the Browns this season. So he's playing very. It's almost like a poor man's version of Darnold, what we were talking about, right? Where he'd been playing well, but the fantasy production hadn't exactly been there. And then he started to have these bigger games. I don't think that's going to happen for Rodgers, but it could against the Bengals. And we're talking about him in a primetime game. And then, if you want to play narratives, then he gets the Packers after this. Well, I'm sure he's going to want to come out and have a big game there if he can. Now, not going to be easy. But I also think, to your point about the Bengals, like they started to show a little bit better with Flacco as the game went on. Obviously, Jamar Chase did with his, heroic play. So I do think that they can make this game a little interesting. The way that they're talking, it's almost like they feel like this could be a season-saving game for them. Division game, home, prime time. If they can win this and sort of get back on track, I don't know if they will, but obviously we've seen a lot of crazier things happen already this year. So if they make this a game and Rodgers has to throw a little bit more, then I think that comes into play. But really, your point, though, I think is the most valid. They can't run the ball like the teams that have faced the Bengals have lately. And so while I like Jaylen Warren, I think he'll have a good game. He's clearly a starting running back for this week. I do think that Rodgers will lean on his running backs in the passing game. I think this could be a 250-2 type of game. So we're talking about a low-end starting quarterback at best.
We did see the Steelers run the ball really well against Minnesota 2 games ago. It was with Gainwell as the exclusive back. And then last week they didn't, but they played Cleveland. That's a tough defense. And this isn't nearly as tough of a defense. I wonder if both of those running backs can end up being okay this week. And I have some concern about Aaron Rodgers having a monster game. I think he can have an okay game. And so I think it really comes down to, do you want to take the quarterback that can have an okay game in a favorable matchup on a short week? Or do you want the quarterback, and this is the battle in my mind between Rodgers versus Jackson Dart. Do you want the quarterback who's probably going to stink this week against Denver, because that defense is really good, but after Denver, he's got a nice schedule. Do you need that guy long-term? And if you need a guy long-term, I think I'd probably find a way to get Dart first. If you need a guy for this week, though, I agree. Aaron Rodgers is the better get.
I'm not going to just sit here and say that the Eagles, by the way, are an easy or a good matchup.
Sure.
So they were playing when Jackson Dart scored 24 fantasy points against the Eagles. They were playing without Carter and mostly without Quinion Mitchell. So if those guys are back in 2 weeks, and Carter, I don't know. I assume he will be, but I don't know. Like, I don't know how Jackson Dart can keep doing this. He hasn't thrown for more than 202 yards. Is he going to run for 10 or more attempts every week? Is he going to run for 50 or more yards every week? He's the third quarterback in football history to do that. It feels like smoke and mirrors a little bit. So I don't know.
But
he doesn't have a good enough receivers. Like there's not that much upside. Is he ever going to score more than 24? 24 is good, but yeah, go ahead.
To that point, though, this feels very similar to the Daniel Jones run with Daboll as well. Like,
wasn't that good?
But he was a good fantasy quarterback, though.
He was
hovering around that 20 point per game range. He ran for 700 yards that season.
Right, but I've already got quarterbacks on my team that can do that. I mean.
But look at the list we're talking about here, though. It's not like it's, first off, you're down Josh Allen, you're down Lamar Jackson, bye week injuries, whatever you want to call it. They're not playing this week. So that's 2 managers in every league that's been either chasing quarterback in the last 2 weeks with Jackson, or certainly chasing quarterback this week with Josh Allen. And so where do you want to go with it? And then as Dave pointed out, we get to week 8, you have a lot of situations that's dealing with as well. So you have a quarterback in Dart, at least if you're looking ahead, taking on that Eagles defense. You're 100% right. They were not at full strength when he played them. But what he's given you so far with 19 or more points in 3 straight games, what he's done with his legs, and to be fair, I don't think that this is a difference-making type of player, but he didn't have Darius Slayton as well, who might be his best receiver at the current state of what it looks like right now. So I just think that if you're trying to manage this, because that's what we're doing, you're not expecting, at least for me, I'm not expecting Jackson Dart to be 24 points, because I do think that the Eagles defense clearly going to be pissed off after losing to the Giants in prime time.
I would be
and now that you're back in their building for that long road trip. So Dart to me is a low end starter, but that's what Rodgers is. That's at best what Bryce Young is. And let's give Trevor Lawrence some credit.
I'm just saying, sorry, I just want to wrap it up. I mean, I'm just wondering if he's what he's going to be rest of season. Is Jackson Dart going to be a top 12 quarterback rest of season?
No, I don't think anybody should be viewing it that way. I think you're viewing it as, can you get me to that 18 to 20 point threshold and not make my team suck because I started you, and you get the Mac Jones performance from last week, who threw the ball for 347 yards, but no touchdowns and 2 picks, and you got 10 fantasy points out of it. Like, that's the thing you want to avoid, so I think Dart, because of his rushing, so it's probably not going to be 50 yards every week, but he started 3 games and he's rushed for 2 touchdowns and he's been over 50 yards in all 3 of those outings. So can he get you 30 to 45 rushing yards? I think that's realistic.
Yes.
Can he score every other game? That's probably going to be the potential's there for that. And so I think just based on how they're using him, he may get hurt.
All right, we got to wrap up here. Sorry. We got to move on.
No, there's one last thing. I don't think anybody's going to be excited to start Jackson Dart this week, and nobody probably should unless it's a super flex league. If he has a good game, if he scores 18 points against Denver, you're going to feel okay starting him against Philly, and then the opponents after Philly for the Giants moving forward.
Okay, so I got to say, if you don't need anyone this week, remember, Arizona, Detroit, Jacksonville, Raiders, Rams, Seahawks, all on a bye in week 8. There are a couple of quarterbacks that you should seriously be considering. You got CJ Stroud against the 49ers, and you've got Michael Penix against the Miami Dolphins. And that might be the play to pick up Penix now.
That's a nice call.
Beat the waiver wire, get ahead of the game for week 8. Running back. Okay, Gainwell and Kendry Miller are the sort of shallow league guys. Kamani Vidal, Zonovan Knight, Tyjae Spears. Those are the best options. And then you've got the handcuffs, Jaden Blue. Emmanuel Wilson. I mean, it's crazy. Emmanuel Wilson, to me, I think is one of the best handcuffs. And he's only 8% rostered. And, I think he'd move into a pretty big role if Jacobs got hurt. I don't know that for sure. Isaiah Davis is also on the handcuff list because not only do you have a potential injury, but a potential trade of Breece Hall. And then obviously Tyler Algier, has got to be handcuff number 1.
Yeah, I just in the order, just because I did this last night. So Algier would be ahead of Blue and Davis and Wilson.
Agreed. He's 38% available on CBS though. And I think if you've been living with Bijan and you don't have Algier, I would find a way to lock up that backfield. Here, one more thing. I noticed that Trey Benson is available in 36% of CBS leagues. I don't know if there's an easier IR stash than Trey Benson.
I would guess I always struggle with this when I look at it, because that's kind of the number that you see for a lot of the IR guys is in that 60 to 70-ish range. And so My guess is those are all the IR leagues that we have.
Yeah, I mean, that's a good point. But I think Benson, probably should be worth a stash, even if you can't put him in an IR spot. He's getting closer to a return.
Right. So when we get to that number, those are usually the 10-team leagues. And depending on how deep your bench is, without an IR spot, it's just tough. So I get it. I mean, if he's available, you should be stashing him. And if you have an IR spot, for example, and you're looking at it, you have Christian Watson in an IR spot versus Trey Benson, that's an easy swap.
There you go. All right, at wide receiver, you can see if Matthew Golden or Jerry Jeudy or Cooper Kupp or Trey Tucker. Tucker's been pretty damn solid. Wan'Dale Robinson, see if he's available. He might be the guy who has some success against Denver. Rashid Shaheed, bad week, but usually, pretty consistently gets you 8 or more fantasy points. And then there's Kendrick Bourne, who would be the number 1 wide receiver if available. Kayshon Boutte is Jamie's favorite this week. Josh Downs, I wish he just played more. He just does not play well. Play much. Jalen Coker, hopefully back this week, would be a good matchup against the Jets. Tutu Atwell scored 11 or more fantasy points in all 4 games last year without both Kupp and Puka. We think no Puka this week. Adams will play. But the Jaguars give up a lot of deep balls. They give up a lot of big plays, and that is what Tutu Atwell does. You put Alec Iomanner on here. What about Van Jefferson? Is Iomanner your favorite Titans receiver?
I don't want to trust Van Jefferson. I hope with the coaching change, let's focus on the future, Titans mentality, that this could be a game where Iomanner gets a lot of targets and chances. And so not an easy matchup, clearly, but I think if you're stashing somebody, we don't know how long this Ridley injury is going to be.
And the Patriots, that's their matchup this week. They've actually allowed double-digit PPR fantasy points to 11 wide receivers in 6 games. Darius Slayton's kind of the long-term look. And then we got the Bucs wide receivers on there, whether it be Cameron Johnson, Tez Johnson, Sterling Shepard. Earlier, Jamie said Cameron Johnson, then Shepard, then Tez. Dave said Tez, then Shepard, then Cameron. But then we find out that a reporter for the Bucs, Greg Allman, expects Mike Evans to play this week. So it does put a bit of a damper on things. And there's Zay Jones. Zay Jones with a big game last week. If Marvin Harrison's out, Zay Jones, would he crack your top 36?
No, but he's somebody that you should look at in deeper leagues.
There is somebody who is watching our show right now who plays in a 3 wide receiver triple flex league. And I suggested Zay Jones to him a couple of weeks ago. It wasn't because I thought that Marvin Harrison was going to get hurt. It was because I thought that he would give the Cardinals some speed. And it worked out last week because Marvin Harrison got hurt. If Harrison misses the game, he's kind of a Hail Mary type of wide receiver to add in those deepest of leagues.
I will say this just in regards to the Cardinals. Michael Wilson left the game briefly with a finger injury and then came back and finished the game. He kind of left right before Marvin Harrison suffered the concussion. So it could be Wilson as the better option than Zay Jones, but you just have to base it on what we saw, and Zay Jones could have the better ceiling and higher opportunity.
There's also the wrinkle of who's throwing the ball to them.
Yeah, there's that. Trey Harris is a super deep league guy. He played most of the snaps, led all Chargers in snaps, receivers, and had 5 targets. Calvin Austin, again, is someone I'll highlight. Just got a chance against this terrible Cincinnati team.
Adam, is it worth bringing up Josh Reynolds?
Yes, it is. Any faith in Josh Reynolds?
Minimal,
no, but he should be added.
99% of leagues. He's in this conversation of guys to add in the deepest of leagues at wide receiver. We should have brought him up for that.
Josh Reynolds.
He should be stepping into a big time role for the Jets, and he did last week.
What about Hollywood Brown? He's 53% rostered. We just kind of thinking Rice is back out with Hollywood.
It's hard to trust. Yeah, I would. I'm very curious because they're probably going to make one of these guys inactive. So is it going to be Thornton? Is it going to be Juju? Is it going to be Brown? I'd be very surprised with Brown. So is it Juju or is it Thornton?
I think you'll see Brown as the 3rd receiver. Rice will play in the slot the most. That's bad for Juju. And Hollywood Brown, so every game this year, he's given you at least 8 PPR points. Right. I feel like that should be a reasonable expectation with Rice back, but nothing like what we saw last week.
Oh, wow. Someone just threw out a name. Oh, he's 80% rostered. It says, Adam, what about Nick Chubb? You could do worse.
He's out there and you need somebody. He's good depth.
This is a Woody Marks game coming up.
I hope so, especially against Seattle and the way that they've played running backs this year.
You could do
terrible
worse
against pass catching running backs,
right?
And you can't run on them,
right? That's
all right.
Good for Marks,
right? But you don't have to start him this week. But there could be times where you want to start Chubb. I mean, we were hoping it was Woody Marks, but all right, tight ends, a lot of them.
Would you start him against where are they? The 49ers in week 8?
Maybe they could have a terrible defense without Warner.
Denver in week 9?
Probably not.
Nope. Jacksonville.
Well, move on. I don't. This is not. Just Nick Chubb is a running back.
He's depth.
Would you rather have Kyle Pitts or Harold Fannin?
Fannin, but it's not with long-term thoughts in mind.
Kyle Pitts or Cade Otton?
Otton, but it's not with long-term thoughts in mind.
Pitts.
Okay, there's Michael Mayer. There's Oronde Gadsden. If Quentin Johnson plays, I don't think you want to mess with Oronde Gadsden. Evan Ingram, we haven't talked about him. He's
been okay.
He's got 6 or more targets in 3 straight games, and now he's got a revenge game against the Giants. He's interesting. Mason Taylor or Evan Ingram? Who'd you rather have this week?
Taylor long term.
I think I'd rather have Ingram this week, Taylor rest of season.
Okay. I mean, look, if Mason Taylor's not going to be good this week against the team that gives up the second most fantasy points to tight ends without Garrett Wilson, then why would I even bother rostering Mason Taylor?
I get it.
And then any interest in the following players? AJ Barner.
No.
Not with all the other tight ends that are out there.
Not
He's
against
been
you.
good, but I'd rather have Fannin, Otten, like those dudes.
Yeah.
Ingram.
A Bengals tight end.
No.
Taysom Hill.
No.
Non-PPR leagues, maybe if I'm desperate.
Theo from Die Hard, a.k.a. Theo Johnson.
Is that his last name?
No.
No, the tight end from the Giants. It's Theo Johnson.
Yeah.
You're wrong, Adam. No, I'd rather have a bunch of the other names.
You know where I went first when you said that? It took me a second because I know you meant Theo, the hacker, the computer hacker. But
That's who it is.
the FBI guys were Agent Johnson and Johnson.
Oh, that's right.
He's all 3 of those guys wrapped up into one giant tight end.
Yeah, I'm in charge now. All right, DSTs. We like the Chiefs, the Seahawks, the Vikings have been pretty terrible this year. But they get the Eagles. We'll see. I wouldn't want to start. We don't want to start the Vikings, do we?
I
The
don't.
Eagles are a mess right now.
They're a mess. Their guys are healthy and they can come out of it.
But think about this week. You said it. There's a crappy week of DSTs.
Yeah, it is. And how about the Falcons at San Francisco?
Maybe.
Yeah, I mean, maybe.
Maybe. There's a lot of maybes. I think you can
There
make
is.
a case for the Bears as a maybe. Maybe the Giants, based on how the Broncos offense looked last week.
I mean, you can make a case for the Dolphins against Dylan Gabriel.
Oh,
All right, kickers, Chris Boswell, Jason Myers, Josh Carty. Have a great day, everybody. We'll talk to you at 1 o'clock with the Waiver Wire show on CBS Sports Network. And tomorrow, buy low, sell high. Goodbye.